Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Avenu Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. My name is Keith Van Ness. I'm here with the owner of Avenu Fitness, Brent Gallagher, and this is our premiere episode, our inaugural episode of the new podcast that I convinced Brent that we had to do because he's just so chock full of knowledge. And every time we have a conversation, I've been doing marketing for him for about a little over 3 years now, and digging into, what drives his business, trying to figure out all the marketing things like his target demographic and all that stuff. But he always drops these nuggets of wisdom, and he's been doing this for over 14 years. And I really enjoy our conversations. And I was like, hey, you know what? Everybody else needs to hear this stuff. So without further ado, let me just jump back into it. What we're going to do today is we're just going to throw out, just jump right into it, start hitting you in the face with some value and some great talking points. And the first thing I want to go over is a newsletter that you put out just a couple weeks ago talking about why fat loss is so rare. Like, why is it rare to have a healthy and fit lifestyle? Like, why is that such a hard thing to do, and why it's so rare in today's society?
Well, rare is one of those things like you think through as you go, hey, look, we're not seeing this every single day. It's a rare diamond, so to say, if you will. It's a rare find. It's always one of those things that we look at it and go, we see it as it's so valuable, but there's not a lot of it, and when you look into the fitness world and you look at an industry that's just kind of laced with all these quick gimmick, hey, if you do this for the next 30 days, you do this for the next 7 days, you're going to look like this, take this magical pill, and da-da-da-da. It's like, no one ever talks about, like, am I going to have to keep taking this pill for the next, 50 years of my life? Or am I going to have to keep following this crazy plan for the next 50 years of my life, or longer or shorter, whatever that might be? So when we look at it and someone who's truly living a fit and healthy lifestyle, and they've done it for longer than 6 months. Let's just say someone who's been doing it for a year, because that's kind of the gold standard. We always say is people will lose weight, but within the next years, they'll put it right back on again. Sometimes they'll put it back on even more. And, so it's like, man, if somebody's doing this for longer than a year, they've made some changes into their lifestyle, they are truly feeling health. It's kind of cliche. And you're like, oh, I'm feeling healthier today at 40 than I ever did at 20. And it's like, it's funny. I was laughing about that in the gym. I was working out with some of the guys the other day, and I said, I actually do feel that way. I really, truly do feel, because of some of the changes that I've been making even over the last 2 years, that has changed my health from the inside out. And when we think about rare, we have to think it's something that's not superficial. It's not going to be found on every street corner. It is something that's going to come, from within, and that people are going to be able to go, wow, there's just something different about that. And again, when it goes back into the fitness world and the nutrition world, the fat loss world and stuff and everything, it's, the rare is losing the fat and keeping it off. It's making sustainable and healthy food choices over the long term, regardless of the situation. And I think the biggest one that no one really talks about, it's digging into the root of your story, and kind of putting to rest these drivers, these things that call us back into, punishing ourselves with grueling workouts, to punishing ourselves by restricting food, to punishing ourselves by staying up till late hours, constantly having to work and can't really put things away. So it's like, when we really start to address those three things, then all of a sudden you get this health that becomes rare. You get this feeling inside you that you almost feel guilty that someone else isn't experiencing the same thing. When you always do that cliche, hey, how you feeling? And it's like, some people are like, oh man, I'm tired. Or the other one is, I'm busy. And on the flip side, if you don't say one of those two, you feel a little inferior. You're like, oh, I'm not doing enough to make a difference in the world. When it comes to your fitness, you're like, I feel great. Like, I don't need to lose weight. I don't feel I have to go out and run a race to prove something to somebody else. I don't feel I have to go to the gym to try to live up to some standards. And when I eat, I enjoy the food. And if I'm going to splurge, so to say, I'm going to enjoy it. And you really enter that rare air of, this is somebody who is healthy for the long term.
So what would you say is the reason why it's so hard, or why living a healthy, sustainable lifestyle is so rare?
Because we're adults and we can make our own choices. I mean, it's just like, no one's there holding you accountable. When you're a kid, you had to eat only what your parents put on the table in front of you, or what they bought for you, up until the point that you were old enough to go somewhere else and get something to eat on your own, whether you made your own money or you had a car to be able to drive you somewhere else. But it's like, now we're adults and we don't like other people telling us what to do. So if you get home after the end of a long day, when you would tell your kid, no, they can't have the ice cream at the end of the day, we're going to say, you know what, after we put them to bed, we've had a long day, so we'll go have some ice cream. We'll go have a glass of wine.
Well, one of the things that you pointed out in the email that I thought was very interesting was you talked about addictions or escapisms, coping mechanisms. And with some people, immediately comes to mind drugs and alcohol. You think of that. But there's also like a lot of people, this has become more and more prevalent, is social media addiction. The time that you spent watching Netflix or late night refrigerator raids and stuff like that. You talked about the ice cream and stuff like that. So, but what was more interesting than all that, those seem like a bunch of bad habits, or you could call them coping mechanisms or escapisms or whatever. But all those seems like bad habits. But specifically, when it came to your story, you were talking about like some of your escapisms was like running or soccer or even like running your business. And I was like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like a bad thing.
No, well, you kind of have these choices when you're trying to run from something. You can go two different routes. You do these ones where you choose the path of the drugs and stuff that people say it's such a bad thing to do, or you can turn to what people view as the healthy pursuits of working out more, building a business, and doing all these things that people will give you, pats on the back and accolades for. So it's kind of funny you think about it. It's like no matter which way that you go with it all, one way we chastise you. You say that you should be making better decisions. How could you be doing that? To the other side, to when someone is just as addicted to something else, we give them accolades and we give them reward. It's like all of a sudden we're rewarding the bad behavior, which becomes easier and easier and easier for us to do. So for me, it was soccer in the beginning. It was the awards that I got, from playing. It was, it was a scholarship to go play in college. I started to see, man, the more I invested time into doing this, the better things would be for me. When in reality, I didn't quite understand that eventually this is going to come to an end. And I could not continue to use soccer as the escape. And so as I sat there on the last day of my soccer game in college, we were defeated 2-3. I remember sitting on the field being like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. For 20 years of my life, that was my identity. And then all of a sudden I'm like, what do I do next? So then literally the very next day, I just took up running. I started running like Forrest Gump. It took off, because what was going to happen to me is I was going to have that period of time where there was nothing left to distract me from the root of the issue that drove me on a day-to-day basis. So I needed another escape. So I found my escape pretty quickly, because I knew if I would have gone any period of time, I probably would have gone off the deep end when it came to my own health of trashing my body and stuff. So in essence, I chose running, which at first was a healthy pursuit. And then it became an addiction. And it went from, hey, I'm just going to go run a little bit, to I'm going to go run 8 miles for the first time in my life. You know what? I'm going to sign up for a marathon. Never ran a 5K, never ran a 10K. I'm just going to run for a marathon, because that's just more and more and more. I can get the pats on the back when people tell me, oh, hey, you did so good running 20 miles this weekend. You imagine being in college and running 20 miles and showing up with your group of friends, be like, oh, I'm so exhausted. I just ran 20 miles. Your friends are like, man, I wouldn't even run 2 minutes. Why are you running 2 miles? But it was that feel-good factor that I needed. It was those pats on the back that I needed to keep me going. And then eventually kind of the marathons and the ability to continue to do all that kind of fizzled out. And I started a business. And I literally went from January 15, 2006 of running marathons to January 16th, 2006 of starting my business. So it was pretty much like I did not give it one day. Just like with soccer, I ended soccer. The very next day I took off running. I ended my marathons. The very next day I started building Avenu. And so for the last 14 years, it was this kind of, I'm just going to use Avenu to build this facade in front of me. It was like the Wizard of Oz. As long as I can keep enough smoke going, then no one's really going to look past the curtain to see what's really happening on the backside of it all. And that to me was, I can lead a business, a health and fitness business, and show you that I work out every day and show you that I'm getting enough sleep on the backside. But at the root of it all, what is my health like on the inside? And that's where I started to fall into a lot of trouble, because there was only so far I could run from something versus stopping, addressing the root of my problem and say, what is truly driving me on a day-to-day basis? And can I begin to take the steps to right that problem.
So what was your turning point?
So the turning point was basically my wife encouraging me we've been married now for 14 years, almost 14 years. And in the beginning, it was fine because it didn't rear its ugly head, so to say. My low grade anger, my pursuits didn't cause too much friction. But then all of a sudden, as I continued down the way, just again, as you see someone who might drink too much or someone who's doing drugs in the beginning,
functioning alcoholic is what they call it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can get away with these things and it's no big deal. But then what ends up happening is it just becomes more and more and more, and you have to seek more and more and more to continue to get that same fix. People start to notice. And someone, like my wife, who was right there beside me, was like, hey, I think there's something up. I think you just need to talk to somebody. And I pushed it back for so long. I was like, no, I'm fine. And I literally pushed it back for 12 years, because it was about 2 years ago. I finally was like, okay, you're right. I do need to talk to somebody, because it was rare in its ugly head in a lot of areas of my life, mainly on the inside of me. I was starting to have a lot of health problems. On the outside, I still look the same as I did when I left high school. But on the inside, my body was trashed. And so I was like, okay, hey, I need to really slow down long enough to address what's going on the inside of me. It's not going to see a different internist. It's not going to see another specialist. It's like, can I go sit down with a coach, therapist, if you will, and really dig to the roots of my problems and figure out what are these drivers that are pushing me forward? How can I connect some dots, start to really begin to understand of how can I right my ship, and how can I start to be right with the people that are in my life? How can I run Avenu in a truly healthy manner, that it's not about I'm trying to hide behind Avenu's growth and then eventually stroke out and die in about 10 years, which would be really ironic, in this pursuit of I'm telling everybody they got to go less, sleep more. And here I am, living by these principles, so to say, and I'm the one that goes first out of everybody. It would be like, crap, there was a faulty business plan somewhere in there that you didn't stop to address. But I think that's one of those things when I stopped to realize that, I was like, oh my God, I've lived with these constant low-grade headaches for 12 years. I get in bed and I'm there for 7.5 hours, but for literally 20 years of my life, I have got up 4 to 6 times a night. I used to think it was because I drank too much water, but that wasn't the problem. These low-grade headaches that I had all the time, I used to be like, oh, well, it might be something, a caffeine headache, or I changed something, I ate something a little different. No, those are emotions in my body that were literally sitting there waiting to come out. And I just kept kind of suppressing them more and more and more by building Avenu, by working out more, by running further, by continuing to put a lot of, again, these quote unquote escapes in front of it all. To the everyday person, it might be they're going to run more. They're going to put on a little bit of weight. They're going to eat a certain way.
They're going to dive into work.
They're going to dive into work. Yeah, and it's going to come out in different ways. And then our health is affected by it. And then all we think is we just need to eat better and we need to change up our workout plan. And that's it. Versus no. Like, we're going to constantly keep having these same problems over and over and over again until we address the root of the problem. And that's where kind of, again, when it gets back into this email, it was stemming from, hey, this was my escape. This is how I started to do things. And this is how I began to take it out. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't take a couple of months of my wife saying, hey, you know what, maybe there's something. It took persistence over years before I finally came to the point where I'm like, okay, I do need to talk to somebody about all this.
Yeah, and that's going back to our initial point. It's like it's rare because it's people are unable to stick to something because they're not getting to like the root of the problem. It's like, hey, why do you keep falling? Why are you using food as a comfort food? Mm-hmm. Like, what is it? You can't just change your diet, because you're probably going to fall back into it. And what you were saying is, it's like an eye opener to you. It's like, listen, it's not about changing something. It's about figuring out why that change needs to take place. Mm-hmm. Like, what's going on with this? Like, is there a reason that you're eating? Is there a reason that you're addicted to social media? It's like for me, all last year, I mean, I could stay on, go on Facebook for like hours at a time, and it's affecting my work schedule. I work from home. I stay on it for a while, and most people's like, hey, well, you just have to limit your time on social media. It's like, why? And then after this email, I started trying to figure out why. Like, well, what's going on? Like, why am I escaping into social media? What is the allure? What is the attraction for me? Like, why am I sitting here watching YouTube for hours on end? And then I started, like, same as you, dial it back, talk to my wife about it, talked about some of the, internal struggles. That's what's going on. And I started identifying what it is that I'm escaping from, and it's getting to the root of the problem. So,
yeah. In this type A kind of hard driving world, kind of that a lot of us operate in, whether that's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's in the neighborhoods that we live, like, you can't stop to talk about your feelings. That's for the weak. That's for the other people. That's for people who don't have it together quite like you do. It's like you can throw out all these cliche things and say, oh, that's for everybody else. But again, it's just an escape. It's just a different way of putting it all, and say, it's like, if you want to literally stiff arm that ability to stop long enough to address, say, hey, what are the drivers? Think about this. There's a book out there called The Body Keeps the Score. And in it talks about how our past story, our past trauma, our past pain, whatever that might be, is not just a feeling that we have. It's not something that's just there and then it's gone. It's not a memory. It is a living, breathing, sometimes monster that is inside our bodies. You see that back in the day with our grandparents back in the 30s and 40s and stuff there. They all had ulcers. They all had bleeding ulcers and stuff. Why? Because it was that time of the Great Depression, the wars, like all the hardships and stuff they were going through. Is they didn't talk about it. They never talked about it all. They call them the greatest generation ever. And it's like, they're just salt of the earth. They just put their head down and they worked. Right. And it just continuously just built up inside them all. And then we moved into kind of like a later period in the 70s, 80s, and 90s and stuff. And then it became all these back problems. And then now it's kind of all over the body. Now it's in the neck, it's in the shoulders and the hips. And wherever it is, it's just raw emotion just hanging out, living inside your body. And I know we're supposed to be talking about like fitness and stuff here. And you're like, this isn't helping my workout routine at the gym. This isn't helping me run any better whatsoever. But it's what it will do is it's going to add years to your life, because this living, breathing emotion that you have inside your body, this past memory that you have, is either wreaking havoc on the inside of your body, or it is giving you life on the backside of it all. And for me, it was literally for the past 20, almost 30 years, it was just turning up and churning up everything inside my body to cause me to be unhealthy from the inside out. On the outside, I was what everybody would say would be healthy. But on the inside, my body's falling apart. And that's why when somebody, passes away, all of a sudden you're like, wow, I mean, they were so healthy. You're like, man, what was going on underneath the skin, inside the body, that truly made them unhealthy, that we could not see?
Yeah. So if you're listening to this today and you feel like, hey, it is tough. I've struggled with maintaining a diet, or I've struggled with working out consistently. And it's like, just take a second today, take a breath, and think about what's going on in your life, what's going on inside, or like what's causing you to binge eat at night? Why are you spending so much time on social media? Like, what is it? And talk to someone about it, because it helps. It helped me. It helped you, obviously. And or if you're someone listening to this and someone's struggling with something, or that's a difficult conversation to have. It's awkward. It's a weird conversation to have. But if you have someone that you love and you want to see them around for a while, and I know this is kind of way off in the deep end as far as like
we
people
get
think
straight after it, but it's like it's why why talk about the same stuff every other person is talking about, every other fitness place is talking about, every other nutrition podcast, health podcast is out there. It's like, yes, we can keep splitting hairs and saying that you need to focus in on your diet, you need to get these key nutrients, you need to walk this many steps, you need to lift this amount of weight, but it's like all that on top of an unhealthy foundation doesn't make you healthy. It's going to crumble. At the end of the day, it's like, yes, this is deep stuff, but as Keith, as you were saying, it's like, look at this and go, okay, can I start even wrestling with this question internally within myself to say, okay, why am I constantly doing these types of things? If you want to, invite a friend into the conversation. Say, hey, this is what I'm learning about myself. And I just want to talk. You're a safe space for me. It goes back to the whole thing. It takes a village, to raise a kid. It's like, we've lost that today. We've lost the ability to seek outside help, because we got to make sure that we show everybody we got our stuff together and that we're not falling apart. We're not crumbling at all. But the best thing you can do is come to it. Just like as I started doing, it's like, you know what? I've got this story. I started looking at this story of saying, hey, what if my story that I've been living is meant to be someone else's survival guide? If I start talking about my struggles when it comes to, just my own health and fitness, to what it means to be in a family with this, to try to grow a business in this sense, like if I can look at this and start talking about this from a guy's perspective, who else could that possibly help? So now I lead with this. Hey, look, man, I went through a period of 7 years that was just terrible for me. And this is how I dealt with it for so long. And then this is how I've gotten healthy from doing it. These are the steps. Let's talk about all this stuff. I used to think feelings were something for someone else, like never for me, because I could blow through a room and never, think twice about anybody I stepped on the way going through it all. I would only look back after I got out to go, did I hurt anybody in the process of going through here? And now I'm like, wait a second. No, we've all got our stories. We've all got these unique little tells that are driving us on a day-to-day basis that are truly awesome because they make you who you are. But it's so cool to say, man, if you got this far in life dealing with all that, allowing that stuff to drive you on a day-to-day basis, what if you were to slow down, address it, connect a lot of dots, start to put the pieces of it all together again? Think about how much awesome stuff you could do on the other side of it when you're at a healthy place. What could you do for your kids? What could you do for your spouse? What could you do for your employees at work?
And then think about like if everybody started sharing this mentality, we all started doing it together, like how we can change the way of having these conversations not to be so awkward, and we all do it. But yeah,
it's deep, and it's almost like a mic drop, and all of a sudden you get done when you're like, okay, see you later next week, done. That's kind of awkward.
Next week we're going to show you proper form on squats.
Yeah, and that's great. That's a great way to look at it, because people think that's it. Oh, I just need to figure out how to squat better, or I need to learn how to do this. But it's like, man, no, it's like, if you're going to get to the heart of the issue with this, it's like, let's just go deep with it. Like from the start, no kind of beating around the bush, and knowing that you, me, anybody, those of you listening to this as well, the people that are around you, the person that you sleep next to at home, like your kids, all of us have a story. And that story is what's holding you back from living a truly fit and healthy lifestyle. That's what's holding you back from making that weight loss sustainable. That's what's holding you back from, again, making a workout routine something that you do on a consistent basis and that you actually enjoy it. So I think about it as like, if we're going to get to the heart of this throughout any of these episodes, whether it's 1 or 2 or 50 more of these things, like we're going to go back to this stuff over and over again, because until we address this, until it make it something that's kind of quote unquote cool to talk about, like we're just blowing smoke.
Awesome. Well, we just came out with some right out the gate with some feelings right out the gate. Listen, if you enjoyed this podcast, do me a favor, please hit that like button, or give us some feedback. Let us know that you enjoyed the podcast. You got some value out of it, so we can continue to keep doing this. But we're going to wrap up this episode. My name is Keith Van Ness. I'm here with Brent Gallagher, and we'll see you next time on the Avenu podcast.